Dr. Anderson is going to be leading that.
Good evening to you. I'm here to share some of the celebrations and recognitions from our P to G session, which was held at the end of January. It was a fantastic program, and give you some highlights of that. You'll see that on the bottom right hand of the screen there. This is, let me point at Kyle there. It's not nice to point, but that is Kyle Ostretker from Central High School, who ended up designing our P to G and Beyond logo that we use this year. And I'll take a moment to explain the concept of our logo in just a moment. And part of our goal here at SPS is to make sure that we're helping all students progress to graduation. And nothing can say it like a video that was produced by our own Nicole Lemon. And so at this time, I'll share a quick overview of that, if I can get to it.
I will graduate in 2015.
I will graduate in 2016.
In 2014.
In 2018.
2019. In 2024.
In 2023. I will graduate in 2025.
I will retire in 2079. I will retire in 2084.
I will retire in 2086.
In 2089. Does that make you feel old? What would be that old? I don't know, 40 or something like that.
40.
Miss Manlove is going to have a king. This iPhone will be 85 years old.
Only 25% of homes will have wired telephones by 2015.
I don't know anyone that has a telephone hanging on the wall.
The internet will be 116 years old.
YouTube will be 83 years old.
Whoa.
The first tweet went out in 2006.
There will be 500 million tweets sent today. That is 5,700 tweets per second.
Wikipedia is 13 years old with 4.5 billion articles.
Will we be ready for what is next? For what's next?
For what is next?
For what is next? I will persist.
I will persist.
I will persist.
I will persist.
I will persist. I will persist. I don't use that word yet.
I will stick to it.
I will stick to it.
I will stick to it. I will stick to it. I will stick to it. I will plan for it. I will plan for it.
I will plan for it. I will plan for it.
I will plan for it.
I will plan for it.
I am a critical thinker.
I am a difference maker. I am a motivator.
I can do anything.
I can do anything. I can do anything. I can do anything.
I can do anything. I will graduate in 2015.
I will graduate.
So featuring our own students there, we're pretty excited about the opportunity that we have to get together and to collaborate around our messages. of let's keep kids engaged, let's keep them in school, let's help them graduate, and now we have a different segment of let's help them get beyond that. So let me tell you a little bit about the event itself. The number up there, 240, represents the number of district and other staff and other members that were there from the community, our teachers, our principals, our program leaders, our departments, that were individuals that were represented at the P2G opportunity to bring all of our learning together. We had 22 plus 3, 22 breakout sessions led by individual people, or roundtable sessions is the 3. We had 3 roundtable sessions. We had 18 different buildings represented and 7 different departments represented in leading these session and roundtables. And we had 9 community members, and the picture on the bottom there represents a college and career readiness roundtable session. As an example, where 9 community and higher education leaders also joined us in talking about the beyond. And that's what the beyond is all about, is it's about getting our kids to graduate, and it's also about helping them think beyond the graduation. This is a change in the reflection of a continued emphasis in college and career readiness. Although we persist to graduation, it's much more than that. It's about preparing for post-secondary or career training. For sake of time, unless you want me to show it, we have a second video that does demonstrate. We had 2 community members. Brian Fogel came and Jim Anderson. Would you like? Okay. Oops.
Certainly as the chamber, what employers we here look for are natural curiosity, asking why things are, certainly working together with others, that collaboration. We live in an environment today and a workforce where people work together as teams, and it's those interpersonal skills and ability to work together is so important. And then finally, being able to communicate well, to communicate with each other, with the customer, to be able to think about those right questions to get what the customer wants and what coworkers want.
I think employers today are looking for that value-added employee. In my opinion, that value-added employee is one who is creative, who's innovative, who's always wanting to look for the better mousetrap, to use that cliche. That is a value-added employee. They'll be successful today and tomorrow.
When I think beyond high school, I think of adult life.
Beyond high school means to me college, and then getting a career that I love and starting a family. Definitely means college, medical school, and probably a lot of ramen noodles, Pop-Tarts, and money that I hate.
Beyond high school for me means music.
I'm gonna be police. I want to be a Marine. Adults have to take care of kids, and that's no fun. Beyond high school means to me is that we will all be successful, and everyone would have a job, and everyone would be happy living in their houses with their children. We'll probably be like 30-something. I am curious.
I am curious.
I am curious.
I am creative.
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 I am a difference maker.
I am a difference maker.
I am a difference maker.
We appreciate the opportunity to come together across across divisions, across feeder patterns, across divisions to work towards our goal. And this wouldn't have happened without the opportunity, without the support of our sponsors. And we have at least one of them here tonight, but recognize all of those that were involved. We'll start with the one that I know is here. Patty Dunn, will you please stand? Patty, as you know, is our president of our Springfield Council of PTAs and also a former mother of a room that I taught in, and always appreciated her. But we appreciate the council, the Springfield Council of PTAs, for their support. Dr. Lorraine Bauer, the Dean of Special Academic Programs from OTC, was unable to be here. And Lindsay Hames, the Manager and Business Assistant from the Springfield Area Chamber of Commerce, was also unable to attend. And I didn't hear word on Gwen Hagar from the Community Relations at Great Southern Bank. Did Gwen make it in? Or anybody from Great Southern? Okay. So, but we appreciate these four sponsorships to make this happen. And this is an annual thing that we plan to continue year after year because it does make a difference in our programs.
I have a comment. I was fortunate enough to be able to attend the morning session. And I drove up and saw all of those cars and all those people. I said, they must have come from the whole region, but no, it was all SPS.
We had a mass conversion that day at church.
You did indeed.
So it was all
you
good.
did. That facility worked out. But I was really impressed with the way the staff were collaborating together, what they were learning, how they were being taught, and also went to the one where the colleges and the employers came in and visited. That was very enlightening for me, I think, and for the staff.
And I'm just pinch hitting tonight for Dr. Kathy Gallen, who couldn't be here, who's attending MOLE training, but she did a wonderful job in bringing together the team that's on the screen, as well as encouraging all of our teachers and program leaders to participate and to make a difference in behalf of our kids. With that?
Where are those videos now? Are they? Can we embed them into our website?
We can. I'll defer to Nicole Lemon on that one.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
And can we hook them in with the Chamber's new website that they're using to promote our area for?
I'm sure we can be in touch with the Chamber and work that out. Absolutely.
Do we have permission to put them on the MSBA website too?
Absolutely.
The state website?
Send that your direction?
Pardon?
Is that you want us to send it your direction?
I don't care where you send it to me or them, but I would like to see.
They're always looking for good news
We're
stories.
looking for good news stories and things like that that can be on board reports or just on our website for things that are happening in districts.
They don't need to look any further, so we'll get them their way. Perfect.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Typically, this is where we'd ask for modifications to the agenda, but we will be voting separately on. There's not a consent agenda tonight because of the combined meeting. With that, going into the President's report, just very quickly, I'd like to publicly thank the rest of the board and to really publicly acknowledge the level of commitment that these 6 people around me have provided to this community over the last couple weeks. Counted up today, and I think there's been at least 20 hours of meetings in addition to other work that's gone on beyond those meetings as we conduct the superintendent search. And so all of us have other responsibilities. We have families, and I just would like to, on behalf of the whole district, thank everybody sitting at this table for that commitment. And with that, we'll go into the superintendent's report.
Really, as far as my report, the only thing that I would say is that we are praying for good weather from here on out, and that as we're still trying to make a decision whether we're going to use the day in April or not, depending on what the future is going to give us as far as weather is concerned. Other than that, I just assume we went into our strategic discussion. So if we could do that, I'd like to have Dr. Hackenworth and Christine, Mrs. Jones, come on up, and we will let them begin the discussion around choice and innovation. I think it's kind of interesting how it connects to the piece that we saw from P2G. So Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, before entering into your strategic discussion regarding choice and innovation, we wanted to provide you some foundational information to not only initiate conversation, but also aid in that conversation. So, as a reminder, the goal of choice and innovation is to support SPS through the development of a variety of unique learning opportunities to truly personalize learning by meeting the diverse needs and learning styles of SPS students. Choice and innovation directly supports SP5. The measurement of increased choice offerings can be found in Goal 2, Effective Use of Resources, under Indicator 1 of Market Competitiveness. Though not directly mentioned, choice also impacts other areas of SP5, including student engagement, post-graduation readiness, academic performance, and rigor and expectations. During the development of SP5, feedback from stakeholders indicated the need for an increase in choice and innovation options. As you can see on this slide, 64% of parents want to see more options offered. 70% of teachers see the need for increased offerings, and 59% of teachers want to work in those programs. That need was supported again this year when choice and innovation was recognized by the community as a blue ribbon within the 2013 Community Focus Report. Increased community support has been evident throughout the development of choice, but especially the past 2 years as those programs have increased. In front of you, you'll see just a sample of the opportunities within choice and innovation. These programs listed were a focus of the specific strategic discussion questions from the board and is not a complete list, nor does it include the innovative practices that go on in our classrooms every day. But what we did want to share with you is some of the data that we've put together specifically related to the questions revolving these programs. As you heard last month, as part of the Gifted Education OSR, plans are in place to research and develop opportunities to expand and enhance gifted education within SPS. We currently serve 923 students through our various gifted education programs and are recognized at the state level for excellence in the services offered. However, we're always looking at opportunities to improve and meet our students' needs. The International Baccalaureate program is also one of our choice programs. Springfield Public Schools is one of only 30 districts in North America that offers all 3 levels of the IB program, which is definitely something to celebrate. We offer the primary years program, the middle years program, and the diploma program. As you can see, we have waiting lists at our PYP sites, or elementary sites, and it's important to note that these waiting lists extend 5 years before kindergarten. So when I called and asked that question, they say the general rule is have the child and then call us. At MYP and the high school levels, waiting lists work differently due to transitional transfers and other factors. However, it is important to note that there is a waiting list at Pipkin. They hope to be able to encompass those students next year. And at Central, though there's not a waiting list, Central is at its capacity. 50% of students attending Central are on transfer, and it's estimated that 25% of those students are specifically there for the IB program. Others are there because of the climate of the school, which IB obviously has a direct impact on. This is cohort data for our PYP and MYP sites. Cohort data allows you to see the progression of the same class over a period of time. So in this instance, it's over a 3-year span at our PYP sites from their 3rd to 5th grade year, and at Pipkin at our MYP sites, it's from the 6th to 8th grade year. For example, if you look at here at Boyd, the Boyd class, this shows a 13% growth in communication arts from their 3rd to 5th grade year. And though you'll notice that they start at varying levels in that 3rd grade year, the growth pattern is similar at Field, and Roundtree has a growth of 20% between those 3 years. And I would like to mention as I go through these slides that we do have several principals here to show their support of the programs. So if you guys would like to wave your hand or stand and just, I'd like to acknowledge their presence. Also, I wanted to provide you some information about our diploma program. To date, there are 374 students who have earned the IB diploma. just over 1,300 students have successfully passed one or more exams. So there's multiple exams to get the IB diploma, and students can take part in various levels of that program. So it's important to note that not all are required to take the whole program, which then would result in the IB program, but many more take various exams and also participate in individual IB classes that fit their needs and interests. Another program that I would like to highlight is our Middle College program. The Middle College program is a partnership with OTC, and its mission is to provide an exceptional, individualized college and career experience for secondary students in a college setting. It is specifically designed for students who have not found success in a traditional high school setting. Students can earn college credits and have assistance in the transition to higher education. That's a major focus of this program. And in fact, in 2013, the senior class saw a 40% increase in their college entrance exam. The demographic profile that you see on this slide is for this year's 2014 class. The graduate profile just below that is over 4 graduating classes, so you can see the average GPAs, both incoming and outgoing, and also the college and GPA and credits earned. One strength of the Middle College program is the opportunity for students to participate in internships. And as you can see, of those 4 graduating classes, there were 231 internships that students took advantage of, which is a huge plus for them. Middle College began in 2008 and has since served 481 students. The class of 2013, for example, had 52 graduates, had a high school GPA increase, and again the 40% increase in their college entrance exam, which I mentioned earlier. Middle College does do a graduate follow-up with their students, and they do it 6 months after they graduate, after they complete the program. 90% of the 2013 graduating class were either attending college or working. Robertson Community School. Robertson Community School, though it's still too early to gauge the impact of that community school model on student performance and growth, we are able to begin collecting data on engagement and climate to ensure that we are meeting the needs and continue to meet the needs of the Robertson community. So a couple highlights that I wanted to point out is that since becoming a community school, it's now in its 2nd year of the community school model, 1st year of the continuous learning calendar. But since becoming a community school, Robertson has partnered with 35 unique partners to provide after-school and evening programming for both the students and families, really increase the offerings to get families and get the community into the school. All those are based on stakeholder feedback, so we start with a interest survey and then continually survey the stakeholders, which in this case are the Robertson community, to make sure that those programs are still meeting their needs, and we develop new based on the feedback that we get. Also, I'll kind of skip to the bottom bullet, is this year we also started the after-school and evening meal program at Robertson, so students and families can come in the evenings and eat together. We served 1,019 snacks just in the fall of 2013 semester and 1,800 dinners. So that was another celebration to have with that community. I think one of the largest celebrations that we've had this year was the first intercession, which happened in October. And I can't help but smile when I think of the intercession because it went above and beyond what we expected. And we had 79% of Robertson students participate. That's 242 students who took advantage of 2 weeks of unique learning opportunities. And we were able to do some really neat things and respond to the stakeholder feedback when we first started talking to families about intercessions, and that was that they wanted it to look different than school and for their kids to have opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have for various reasons. And I'm very confident to say that we were able to do that. And I can't take all the credit for that. That was a perfect example of collaboration, both here and also at Robertson. There was a group of teachers that really took charge and made that curriculum, made that intercession experience what it is for kids. And there's 2 of those teachers here with us this evening, so I want to recognize them and give them a round of applause because it was wonderful. I do have to mention Kelly Loftus is the ringleader of that group of teachers, and she just did a phenomenal job. I cannot say that enough, so thank you so much, Kelly. And we are ready for our next intercession, which is in March, and we're very excited about that. Moving on now to our WOLF program. Within its 6-year, WOLF attracts approximately 400 applicants from interested students from across the district. You'll see here in front of you the demographic profile for WOLF, indicating both the free and reduced lunch percentage as well as the minority enrollment compared to the total of district 5th graders. So that's the comparison that you'll see there. For example, in 2012-2013, the free and reduced lunch rate was 37% at WOLF compared to 58% for our total 5th grade students. Also, I wanted to show you that attendance rates and yearly scale score gains are typically higher with WOLF students than students in traditional classrooms. You can see that in this information in front of you with the attendance rate, and then the average yearly scale score gain in both reading and mathematics shows you the comparisons between our WOLF students, our average gain within our SPS 5th grade classrooms, and then also nationally. This information represents the growth between the beginning year and middle of year for this school year in both reading and math. In reading, for example, the gain for WOLF students was 13.7% compared to the district 8% of your beginning and middle of year reading scores. In math, the growth was 29.6 for WOLF students and 2.3 for district. And I also don't want to fail to mention that Sue Dial is here with us this evening, who has been with WOLF since the beginning and is a huge champion and advocate for not only WOLF but our choice program. So thank you, Sue, for all you do as well. The next slide stems from really a question that was presented in a previous discussion this fall from the board, and that was the discussion that sparked around the question of does not having transportation cause a barrier for families when applying to choice programs. And to date, we've not collected any information on that through previous application. There's not been any way for families to indicate that being a barrier. We do, however, have a consistent marketing approach to ensure all students are informed and receive application material, including classroom visits, ensuring an application is received by all students across the district, as well as our web and social media presence. And this year, postcards will be sent out to our current 4th graders and our current 7th graders with information about our new programs, which I'll touch on later in the presentation, but our new programs for 5th and 8th grade students. So that's another attempt in ensuring that the information is spread across the district. This year on the applications, we've also made an addition of a note for families that explains that if they have a hardship of any kind, transportation or otherwise, we give them a contact number so that we can become aware of that and work with them on an individual basis on how we might, options to solve those problems. So that's one change that you'll see on the applications this year. But based on that previous discussion, we also asked Rick Emling to provide an estimate of what the cost would be to provide transportation for our choice programs. And we chose to start with our magnet choice sites, so our sites that don't already have an attendance area associated with them. And of those sites listed, you see our wings, basically our gifted education programs, Wings, Bridges, and Scholars, WOLF, the new Health Sciences Academy that will be at Mercy next year, as well as the Academy of Exploration that will be housed in the Discovery Center next year. And we started with those programs. And based on the fall enrollment or the future enrollment of those new programs, they would serve a total of 929 students, and to provide transportation would cost just over $1 million. However, I do want to note that this figure does not include all of the programs currently under the Choice umbrella, nor does it account for the almost 4,000 students who are on transfer across the district, exercising choice to fit their needs. So therefore, it's really difficult to draw that line of where transportation would be provided and when it would not, so it would need some further board discussion. Now that I've provided a very brief and hopefully quick snapshot of current programming, I would also like to provide a brief update on the new opportunities coming for students. These opportunities are currently under development and will be available in the 2014-2015 school year. So as a brief recap, the Academy of Exploration is the 5th grade program that will serve 40 students at the Discovery Center. It's a partnership with the Discovery Center and the Hamels Foundation. The Health Sciences Academy will serve 50 students, and it's a partnership with Mercy, and the classrooms will be located within Mercy Hospital. Quest at GHS is the new tech model program that is going in at Glendale High School. And Startup at the E-Factory is a entrepreneurship-based program featuring entrepreneurship and human-centered design, and it's a partnership with Missouri State's The E-Factory. It's a program that you'll be hearing a little more about later and in the meeting this evening. So development of these programs currently include curriculum, logistical, and evaluation considerations for each of these, and that's currently taking place. Student applications are currently available for Quest. In fact, that deadline is quickly approaching. Applications for Wolf, the Academy of Exploration, and the Health Sciences Academy will be available next week, and we'll start that process. And student registration for the online class at Startup, obviously pending the discussion later, will be available later this month, or March, I should say. Also, I wanted to mention that as we implement these new programs and also evaluate our current programs, we are always looking for ways to connect the lessons learned back to the classroom and really expand that reach into the classroom. And that's something that I know we have learned from our Wolf experiences and are working to implement several programs addressing that need at the secondary level for Wolf. And it was also a consideration when we started developing the Health Sciences Academy with Mercy. They have endless technology that will allow us to provide some of the same learning to students across the district, and that's something that they're very excited about as well. So that was a lot of information thrown at you, but this is exciting work, and I am thankful to be able to present in front of you tonight. And it continues to gain support both internally and externally with stakeholders. So again, thank you, and I hope this aids in your discussion.
Thank you. It seems to me, I'll just kind of start the discussion, but it seems to me that some of the discussions and decisions we'll need to make down the road about providing transportation and those kinds of issues, it seems like we may be at a crossroads of putting maybe some tighter definition around what we consider choice or innovation. So I think that might be where I would just start the discussion of, I think when we first kind of started these things, we were hesitant to put some sort of definition around it, but it seems to me that we may be getting down the road that, what qualifies as choice, because if we do want to get to the point where we provide transportation or that's an option, or it seems like we'll need to have a tighter definition. So I don't know what other people think about that, but Andy, go.
I guess my comments, and I've made these comments before, so it's not going to surprise anybody, but poor kids want to be at Wolf, and if it's a strictly random process of applying and getting accepted to Wolf, you should have Wolf program that reflects the district, and we don't. We're not anywhere close. So something is going on there. And to make that truly reflective of the district, I think we need to figure out what is going on there, whether it is transportation, whether it's how it's sold in certain schools, whether it's leadership, whatever. We need to do a better job in this district to make sure our choice programs are open to all of our students, and they're not. For whatever reason. Technically they are, but they're not. These 4 that we've got going, I can see all 4 of those skewing heavily towards students that aren't poor. And we'll be in the same situation with all 4 of those 4 programs. And again, I love these programs. I think they do wonderful work, but there's a big equity argument when they're not reflective of our district. So we've got to keep our eye on that, whether it's a transportation piece, whether it's something else, I don't know. The other thing that again, and I've said this before, so I'll sound like a broken record again, but and other board members have said the same thing. Some of these results we're seeing, I just don't understand why they're not filtering out faster and into other schools if, in fact, the gains we're seeing are reflective of the instruction, because you don't have overly bright kids in these programs. These are just regular kids that are getting really good gains. We're not spending a lot of extra money on things. This is the way instruction is given to kids. And we talk about learning is personal. Well, that's kind of what's going on in these choice programs. And it frustrates me that we look at these things and say, look what's doing great, but this is just a small sample of our school system, of our school district. And if in fact these things work, then why are we talking about 46 kids in Wolf? So again, I've said it before, I'll keep saying it, but we need to be a little more conscious of the equity argument.
Just a quick comment. I think it's going to be very interesting in budget time, and it may not be this year's budget time, it may be next after you gather data on transportation, for then to approach solve the two problems that Andy brought up. One is transportation, one is including more kids. Are they mutually exclusive? Are they not? We only have a limited pot of dollars, so I think that's going to be a charge to Cabinet, is to maximize our return. Do we maximize it by transporting more kids? Do we maximize it by having more programs? Where's our biggest bang for the buck? And I think some of the data you're going to collect hopefully will help us make that decision.
Well, I think one thing with respect to, if you believe in the old real estate thing of location, 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 I mean, we can either take kids to it or we can put it where the kids are. And as opposed to paying $1 million for transporting kids, maybe we do something differently on location or at the location, whether it's a Wolf program on the north side. And I'm saying we don't
Wolf
have the
North.
facilities.
Yeah.
That may be a bad example, but what I'm saying is, rather than take kids out of that, put something in there for those kids. And it's still a budget issue. It's still an issue we got to talk about. But, maybe that's what we do, as opposed to taking kids from the extreme north and bus them all the way down south. Well, let's put something up there so it's, even if you do transport them, it's not as far. And your cost may not be as big. And you're leaving them in their neighborhood. You're leaving them in their area. And maybe you get a better representation that we've got with our district to do that. Because and my second thing is, I had two other questions, but one, incredible results. It would be nice to see what are the results for the free and reduced lunch kids separate from the other ones. 'Cause I know you got the data; it's there. I know it's there, but the improvements in those kids that are the 27% or 37% that are free and reduced, did their gains, were they equivalent? Were they more, or is it kind of carrying them with the majority? And don't create a whole thing, but I know the data's there somewhere. And did I have a senior moment? Oh, I thought of the second one. You said 50% of the central IB or central is transfers?
50% of central students are transfers. Yes.
Where are they coming from? I mean, are they all Glendale Kickapoo? Are they Hillcrest Parkview? Are they?
That I couldn't answer. I'd have to find that information for you. I'm not sure.
And I was just curious. I didn't know if you knew, because
I don't know exactly.
I was just curious because of transportation again. Because if they go to IB, they got to drive there. They're there, and so how many? I didn't realize it was that high. Mm-hmm. That's pretty incredible that 50% are transfers to Central. It's great, but that's amazing to me that there's that many transfers.
Quite a few of them transfer the intention of going IB, and then when they get there, they don't.
Right.
In the interim, until we can solve the long-term problem, the lottery could be divided up by group, whether it's free and reduced lunch or whatever that might be, and you have a lottery that reflects a percentage of the population of the school. and you draw from that. That's a simple way to kind of make some equity quickly without any additional cost.
I may respond. A lottery tends to mathematically reflect the pool. In other words, if it's 37%, that's pretty much what you have. And so you're right, we'd have to set up the pool to be able to do that. And so if you're free and reduced, your chances are pretty good that you're going to get into a book. Anyway, the thing that I want to mention here, as far as choice is concerned, I agree. What the research is showing, and this is true at San Jose, they have major choice going on there, and the poor do not want to leave their neighborhood. And so you have to bring the program to the neighborhood, like you said. And I'm really anxious to see what happens with the data we're going to get from Robertson. I think that's going to show us, because I think a Wolf program may not work as well with because remember, Ruby Payne talked about relationships, and then the registrar, the conversation around moving them from relationship to achievement is very difficult. And so I think that is a different type of choice. And so I caution you to move slowly in that realm rather than assume that Wolf's going to make the difference by moving it to the north side. So.
Well, and I think, as we look at this, and I'm no statistician, but, one or two children can really skew this percentage. I mean, and I'm encouraged that, that the difference in you look at percentage of students in free and reduced lunch, and I'm just looking at Wolf, there was a 26% gap in 2010. That narrowed to 14% in 2011, and then went back up a little bit to 19%. So, I think it's important just to think that, just one student could really skew, one or two students could really skew that. So I think, to me, from a board perspective, I think we need to be looking at, is that important to us to have it truly reflect, all the demographics of the district? Do we want to get within a range? I think, Dr. Ritter, you talked about, the lottery's only as good as the pool. So, what do we do to increase applications? It seems like that might be, another issue. What do we do to, is there interest in those schools that we're not drawing from? And what do we do to help those families understand this opportunity? And again, it's an opportunity. It's a choice. I like the idea of what you're doing on the application to try to help us get some more information, because if not, it's just anecdotal. So, and the same, we're seeing the same thing with the minority population and the difference between. So, from a board's perspective, I think we need to be giving more guidance. Like, how do we want to evaluate choice? How do we know a choice program is working? How do we know PYP is working? I'm actually kind of disappointed that only 374 students have gotten IB diplomas. We've had that program in place for how many years? 10. Oh, it's
12. I think 12.
Not very many per year. That's not very many per year, and I think, as who's charged at the district level with saying what's a reasonable number? What do we want from that program? And if we have 50% of kids transferring to try to go into that program or do something, what's happening from the time that they get there to the time that they're seniors, and only 35 students are getting their diploma that year? So those, I think, are the critical questions that I want answered someplace. Because as we give, as we allocate resources, we want to know that we're getting a good bang for our buck. And in implementing PYP and MYP, has that increased the diploma stream? Has it increased the interest in IB, or has it just pretty much stayed flat?
I mean, one piece of data would add to that would be those students that just get certificates as opposed to the diploma.
That's the
Right.
1,300. That's what the certificate is, the 1,300 one.
There's various levels of, I don't know if it's certification would be the term that they would use, but multiple tests that they can take, and there's several that to get that diploma. And so there's students at various levels of that.
So the 13 is just the certificates?
The 1,300 is students that have taken one or more of those exams, and I can't remember the total number of exams that they would need for the actual diploma itself.
They need 6.
So you only have 6, but you can take one and get the certificate.
You can take one. Yeah, you don't have to take the whole
You can take like
program.
math.
I thought you could do it
You can
without
get a
it.
certificate in math. You can get a certificate in science. You can get a certificate.
Correct.
I think we could check this, but I do think, getting back to the poverty, you go to Weller and you visit with those 5th graders, that's their community. And it's hard for them to choice out of, 4th graders, it's hard for them to choice out to go to Wolf because they're moving away from their family. And I think that's especially accentuated in Robertson. And so I think we need to look at bringing choice, I really do, to the site. And I think Robertson's an example, but I also saw at Boyd, there's a classroom that has wolf all over it. In fact, you walk in, there's heads hanging. I'm sorry. There's stuffed animals hanging from, how do I describe it? But anyway, without making it sound so ghoulish. But anyway, it's all about conservation. So I really think this is an exciting opportunity and really a lot of great questions that we need to pursue to help us expand our opportunities. So.
Well, I think that what we were looking at and with our academic performance is that this is all leading us to understand and to prepare for that, and looking at student achievement, that the classrooms of the 21st century must look different than they look today. Because when you're, and that's important to us as a board, because we're going to be, as we look at what our classroom designs look like in some of our new classrooms, and our budget for providing those experiences that get the kids out of the classroom and out into the community or to the environment, and our staffing and what that looks like, and our resources and what that looks. So it's just a change in what we're going to look like in 5 years or 10 years. And I think that's also a re-education for parents, that it's good, and your child may have some really unique experiences if they move out of your area to go to school for a year. I had the opportunity to attend one of the Wonders of Wildlife field trips, and Mrs. Bush went with me, and it was an amazing experience because there's many teachers, I think, in our district that would love to be able to present a lesson in that environment. But there's a big difference to being out in national forest next to a stream where you're studying adaptations versus being in your classroom. You can only do so much. So again, we're going to have to look at how the differences in what our classrooms are going to have to look to meet the needs of our students. And that goes back to budget, so something for all of us to really keep in mind as we move forward.
I think part of it's our fault because in setting up these choice programs, we never set up what outcomes we expected. So therefore, we just kind of left that there. Was the outcome of the IB program to have 50% of the people at Central are transfers? I think that's a wonderful outcome. I think what would happen if we didn't have it there to Central? And so I think, I don't know if I'm disappointed or not, because I didn't know what outcome we were expecting, and so to ask people to hit targets that they don't even have a target. We haven't given them a target to hit, so they're just out there trying to do what, or guess what we think we want them to do, which to me just shouldn't be. So if we're going to set up choice programs, which I'm in favor of, but I think we need to go along and then set up what we expect the outcomes to be, so they know if they're doing what the expectation was. And I agree with Andy that the one reason I've said this also is the reason I support choice programs is because of the innovation that's there that I expected to move out into the other areas, but some can't. some can't be replicated. We just don't have the resources to be able to do some of those. But if some of the gains could be done, then it would improve all of them. But I also wonder if everybody sees this then as choice, will it be as exciting? Or is part of the reason we have choice and they get to actually choose to do something different? If you offer it every place, will that really do the same thing? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer. I just know that if the actual instruction in that classroom is improving achievement, then we need to be looking at that and seeing if there's a cost to some of it that we could bear that we think would do, then I think that needs to be brought to us so that we can say, yeah, it's worth that, or no, we can't afford it. And I just don't think that's really, I don't think that's happened yet. But if that's one of the outcomes, if we do outcomes and we say that's what we want, then it will come. And if we don't say it, we just keep talking about it, and next year will roll around.
Real quick, I agree, Chris, that we need to, look at the results we're getting. But I think we got to be real careful on that because, you look at Wolf. I don't really care the gains in Wolf. What I see from kids is the engagement. And I listened to this group from Oklahoma that came and toured our IB schools, and they've been through a bunch of our schools, and all of them talked about, boy, those kids were just engaged. There was nobody misbehaving. They were just all on task doing stuff. So, careful what you choose to say. You've got to target. You've got to hit. We got to look at them and assess them in some way. But if you're telling me a kid's going to be engaged about their learning, they're going to take ownership of their learning, and they're going to be less likely to drop out in high school.
That's what I would.
Then I think I don't care about what their test score is, even though that's got to be part of the equation. But if you get a kid that starts to take ownership and is inquisitive about the world around him or her, then you've met your goal. And how you measure that is difficult, but for us to say, got to hit this target, that's what we hated about No Child Left Behind.
Oh yeah, I'm not.
And so there's it's just a kind of a delicate balance to get there, because for me it's all about engaged students that are inquisitive about their world and want to learn. And if you get that, then you got a good program. And that's why some of these programs, Bruce talked about getting them out, because that's, I think, what they do is they have the ability to catch kids and engage them. So,
power of chaos is design. The power of innovation is a solid foundation rooted in good reading and good writing and good math. All that, though, learned under very creative environments. And that's really what you're talking about. And so I think that we need to consider the culture of the neighborhood and put choice around that culture of that neighborhood. And I think you're going to see heavy engagement. I really do. And so that's the challenge, I think, that we see in front of us. I think Robertson is starting to test that a little bit. And I think we're going to see more of that. And Wolf, it's just one of those standalone programs. And I think we could do more of those as well. The cost.
I don't want to prolong this too much, but how do we get past this slope of, as Mr. Hosmer talked about, all these, and Mr. Renner, all these good things that are happening with engagement and all that really needs to happen in the general classroom in all of our schools? Then it's not a choice.
It is.
And so that's what you want to translate and bring what happens at Wolf or the academies or whatever to scale so that it permeates the district. I mean, and then it's not a choice anymore. And so I guess what I'm getting at is how do we make that then you got choice at the next level of innovation, and what's that going to look like past that? And so that's more an editorial comment than a question. But I'm not being derogatory at all, because I think it's great what we're doing. I just somehow, how do you bring that to scale to our school? And it's happening in our schools right now.
I was going to say,
absolutely. But not everywhere is it happening.
I think it is with the workshops. The writing workshop, the reading workshop, the math workshop. It's organized chaos. I mean,
But we're not seeing those kinds of gains.
Right.
So when you're comparing, what, and it goes back to the question that we were asking about reading programs or Title I, what's happening, and maybe it's just too hard to capture, but what's happening here to bring about these results, and not just test results, but attendance and decreased discipline incidences and things like that. What's happening here that doesn't seem to be happening here? And I think that seems to be the recurring question that I continue to hear from the board, because we're the ones ultimately responsible for allocating resources to make sure that that's happening.
We'll do those things, the results will come.
What you're saying,
truly
though,
believe that.
is very similar to what's happening in shopping. I hate to make this connection, and you heard this: Penny's closing stores, Sears is closing stores, Macy's closing stores because Amazon is supplying the customer. I think we're going to see the same type of transition in our classrooms and the innovation around the classrooms. And so I think really we're seeing a little bit of a cusp of that discussion or that level of engagement that Andy was talking about. Mr. Hosmer, I'm sorry, was talking about. That's really what we're talking about here. And so I think it's going next 5 years in Springfield is going to be awesome as long as we have flexibility and response to students and neighborhoods. Anyway.
I might just mention too that we'll be presenting at the National School Board Conference in April some information on choice, and next month at MSBA as well. So remind the board of that.
I would just like, I think there's been an incredible amount of work that's gone on in the last few years, and some very innovative and very different kinds of opportunities for students and families. And I know there have been a lot of people that have worked hard, but you've been the face of it, Christine, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Going on, are there any public comments for agenda items? Okay, then we'll go on to information items. Bond compliance officer. You get to step up and after the choice and innovation.
That's right. Not quite as exciting.
Sorry.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Ritter. In 2012, the board approved the Tax and Securities Law Compliance Procedure, and that requires the bond compliance officer update the board annually on our bond compliance, and this information item is this year's update. We're required to address 4 items in that update. I'm happy to report that in December we submitted our annual audit and other financial and operating information to the electronic municipal market access system as required. In addition, we have prepared and updated the tax advantage obligation files, and we've completed the annual compliance checklist. The last item is correcting prior deficiencies in compliance, and I'm happy to report that this year that was not needed as we didn't have any areas of non-compliance. So,
is that the item that the internal auditor recommended?
Yes, that was if you remember last year we had an issue we're required to submit that data to Emma every year. We were under the belief that it was within 6 months of the year end, and we discovered that in some of our documents it's 180 days instead of 6 months. So we had typically been filing December 28th, 29th, and I think the actual date was December 26th. So we were technically late. So last year at this time we had to file that we were late a couple of days, which was not unusual, but was still something we didn't want to have to do. But
any questions about that for Mr. Everest? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Audit report.
I'm also not as interesting as choice and innovation.
On that note,
but you do good work too.
If I may say, I asked him if everybody likes him yet, and he says they do. So we're in good shape. Go ahead.
Not necessarily.
Not good.
I'm here tonight to go briefly over the audit of the accounts payable function. Basically, for this audit, I looked at the processes surrounding how the district makes disbursements and related processes like compliance with the state unclaimed property law. Overall, I'm pleased to report that I gave the AP function the effective rating, which means that overall the controls over this area were adequate and appropriate. I did provide a written report that you have through board docs, and I went over that during executive session during a prior meeting. I did identify 5 findings and recommendations to address those findings, and management also, as usual, provided their response to my recommendations. So I didn't plan on going over those in detail tonight, but I will be happy to answer any questions or go over any one of the findings that you'd like me to right now.
Does the board have any specific questions about the findings? Do you feel like management's response was adequate and appropriate?
Yes, and what I really liked about the responses is I think in every single one of them they have a target completion date in there, so they're holding themselves accountable to addressing the problem in a timely manner. And I did want to.
Sure, you'll go back to make sure that target date is met.
Yes, one of the things I'm working on now is gathering information to come back and do a follow-up report on previously issued reports. I plan on doing that for all of the reports except for this one in the next month or so, and then I will follow up on this report as well. And I would like to thank John Everest and his team for all their help during this audit as well.
Okay, thank you. Revenue update.
And that's for this year's revenue.
This year meaning the current?
Current year, yes.
Now, right?
Yep, the year
that we're in now.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Each year about this time, I provide the board with a revenue update. As the board's aware, our revenue is seasonal, and we receive the bulk of the revenue through the month of January, and this provides February as a good opportunity to give the board an update. We have major revenue sources. They include property taxes, and property taxes is mainly based on assessed valuation and levy rate. Sales taxes, that's based on the state economy and is allocated to school districts on a per pupil amount. And the state formula foundation, which is based on average daily attendance, weighted factors, and whether or not the state funds the formula. The above sources comprise over 90% of our operating revenue. Property taxes this year, based on current year receipts and trend projections and information from the county collector's office, is projected to be $960,000 or less than 1% worse than budget. Delinquent property taxes are projected to be $95,000 or about 4.7% worse than budget. Based on current year tax receipts and trend projections, on sales taxes we're projected to be about $560,000 or 2.7% better than budget. And on the state formula, we're right in line with what DESI is indicating we will receive for the year. However, there's still some unknowns. We've yet to receive the M&M surtax payment, which was, to put it in perspective, was $8.6 million last year. We've yet to receive the fines and forfeitures, which was $509,000 last year, and that typically comes, both of those typically come the end of February. And finally, the High Needs Fund, which was about $1.1 million last year. On all those three items, there's nothing to indicate that it would be other than what we currently have budgeted. state revenue is running about 0.7% better than prior year. However, the state budget was based on a revenue increase of 3.1%. I've not heard any discussion regarding cuts this year, but the fact that they're lagging a bit always raises that specter. So the bottom line, assuming that the payments not yet received come in close to budget and the state does not make funding cuts to K-12 education, current revenue projections indicate that we will receive about $400,000 less than budget, or about 0.17% less than budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Why'd you miss us so far?
Pardon?
So why'd you miss us so far?
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Tom.
Remind me now when the additional first stage of the levy kick in and then the second stage of the levy that voters passed.
Last year, the first stage, or excuse me, the revenue for this year was the first stage. The revenue for next year will be the remaining 10 cents.
Okay.
So, not alarmed, pretty straightforward. Any other questions from the board? Okay, great. Dr. Ritter.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, what we have is I want to congratulate Tim Rosenberry, and appreciate you being here, and then also Dr. Frederick, and so we have our board set for next year, and so I wish you well, and I know we're going to have elections, I believe, in April. So, okay, as far as of officers. So, yeah, I meant April. I meant officers. I could see your face, but I saw Chris, Mrs. Collins' face, and I thought, whoops, I better explain. But anyway, so congratulations to both of you.
I'll clap. I'd just like to make a public comment to that. I know that there's been some concern expressed, and I'm not sure if everybody noticed, but the lawsuit that was filed against individuals within the district was what is the proper word, dismissed, I believe, by the judge, and so we believe now that that case, that issue is settled, and I'd just like to publicly thank Mrs. Luton for all the extra time that she devoted to making sure that it was a fair process, and I know it's never easy to be in the public eye, but you were doing your job and doing it well, and kind of got caught in the middle of everything. So, thank you. Okay. With that said, we'll go on to our ongoing systems review, and Mrs. Moore, Mrs. Palmer.
Mrs. Palmer.
Good evening. We have two reports this evening to present. Last cycle through OSRs last year, we received a lot of feedback that you would like a status update on what the programs were doing, since they only formally come to you once a year. And so you have that information as a read-only item and just as a screenshot for everyone else. The green indicates that it was a key opportunity for improvement last year, and the program has addressed that, and now they consider it a strength. And the yellow is any new information, and so that's the same as every other program. The new piece of information tonight is the ones that are highlighted in blue. So that is update from you last had seen the program, and the update is what has happened since. So if there is anything in there, which some of them you will see in the report, they don't have anything to update at this point. Any questions about the status updates? Okay, so tonight we have 3 programs, 2 Tier 1 and 1 Tier 2, Special Services, Diversity and Inclusion, and Homeless Services, and then also Facilities. The process will be a little bit different tonight. We're going to start with the data first, and then go to the strengths and key opportunities for improvement, again, listening to board feedback and wanting the data first. So I will ask Ms. Krause to join me.
We'll see if Jill put a timer on here for me. She gave me a limit, so I'll try to hit between what I want to say and what the limit she gave me was. So
Be complete. That's fine.
just wanted to start with the overview of our program. As you know, Special Services is mandated by federal law, and we are mandated to serve students ages 3 to 21 who are identified with an educational disability under IDEA. So we don't have any options, and it's pretty explicit on how we serve those students and what our requirements are. We have December 1 every year is our magic count date. So that is the day that DESE chooses for every district in Missouri to count the number of students who are receiving services on that day. That does not count the students who are in referral or evaluation. So it's the students that were actually receiving services on December 1st. December 1st, 2013, we had 3,072 students who were receiving special education services. We do have students in every single site across the district, so we are broad as well. Some of our key factors that we have, we measure data all the time. We measure more data than we can stand here and visit about tonight. But we picked some key things off of our special ed performance profile, as well as really honing in on student achievement, because that is our main focus. Many of the things on this list are on our special ed performance profile, as well as our department action plan. So you'll see on number 1, the graduation rate and dropout rate. You know that we have really been working hard on that. We reached a high of over 7% in 2008, 2009, and so there aren't any statistical changes in there. We're fluctuating 1 to 2 students either way the past 2 to 3 years in that area. The next area is graduation outcomes. It's a huge focus on our department action plan. You can see we are all red this year in that area. So when we were drilling down our data, we noticed there was a very small number of students that were in that pool on our special ed performance profile. So district leaders came together. There were several of us that had a stake in the graduate follow-up survey that's done. We do that, start that process every December, and then we have to submit it in core data in February. So those of us that had a stake in what that data meant to them came together, and we really talked about what those processes looked like. We had just 35 students represented in those 3 areas on our special ed performance profile, and we average about 140 graduates and 25 to 27 dropouts. So it was a very low number, and so we were disappointed in that. We did revise our process. We have just completed our process and kind of estimate where next year's data will be. We took all the graduates and dropouts, and we made personal contacts out of the special ed office. And so there were 157 phone calls made times multiple times. We do have data on 117 of our graduates and dropouts from 2013. And we anticipate there should be about 70 students that are in higher ed or competitive employed or both, which will be at least double. So I think by using that process, we'll start to see more consistency in those numbers where we can actually really measure that college and career ready and what our students were doing. We had great feedback from many parents. They said that they had got the survey, but they didn't feel the survey reflected what they wanted to say about what their graduate was doing. And so many loved talking to a live person in the special ed office who understood. And so that was neat feedback to get. Improving student achievement, we have several measures under that area. Early childhood special ed has the first 6, and those are also on our special ed performance profile. When students enter early childhood special ed, whether they're 3 and have been referred from First Steps or...
Amy, excuse me. Dr. Harrell, would you explain, please?
Sorry to disrupt the meeting. We'll be receiving an Amber Alert shortly. We've had a report of a Westport student who has been potentially abducted this evening, and so that's what our school police are working with at this point. And so you may be getting information on your cell phones here very shortly.
From the school or from the neighborhood?
After school, around 4:48 this afternoon, near her, a couple of streets from her home.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Okay. When students enter our early childhood special ed program, the teachers that receive them use a decision tree making model to objectively record where they are when they come in. There had been a different process at the state level on how that was done with another program, and so early childhood programs across the state were very frustrated because the data they got on the students didn't reflect the students that they received. DESE recognized that, and they did change that process. So the early childhood special ed teachers are able to do that entry data, and then they do the exit data. So when they're leaving to go to kindergarten, they use that same decision tree model, and they really look at those positive social emotional skills, how they acquire and use knowledge, and then their behavioral skills, which we know are so important for our students going into kindergarten. So we were really pleased to see all of those areas come up. We would expect the students that we're getting in early childhood special ed would be 100% of them below where they would be expected to be, or they wouldn't be identified with a disability. So we're definitely sending this past year more students to kindergarten with a few more skills. And that is a tight focus, early childhood special ed, on literacy as well as social skills. They do use Project Construct. They've really increased their literacy opportunities in everything they do. And then just having our two centers has brought about great opportunities for parent nights. They do monthly evenings as well as in some very in-depth training opportunities with parents on how to not be afraid of literacy with their child and working on those positive strategies. So some great things going on there. When you move on into number 2, that is our school age achievement. We have chose MAP as that area to measure, but we look at performance series as well as many other data points. What you can see on the map for elementary and middle school is we have much more green than we had last year. We had 3 areas of green last year, and we have 7. You will notice that we have red on the end of course exams. Really drilled that data down, and this last year was the first year that the students graduating in 2013 had to take those 4 assessments. And so what really hit are those students who perhaps the general ed environment is not their least restrictive environment, and so they have perhaps been in direct instruction English for 4 years, and then they have to take that test that's on grade level. And so I really think that that is kind of the first ramification of that piece, where the students that would be in that previous data would have been students who didn't have to take that exam but were actually enrolled in that gen ed course. And so they were receiving that content, where you're going to have students in this year's data who maybe never set foot in that gen ed classroom. And so we designed that where somewhere after their basic course 3 or even in their senior year in basic course 4 to take that, so that they don't necessarily take it.
We know how our numbers compare with the state in terms of our special education population?
We do. I did a comparative data of the districts we compared to. We added Parkway to that, and then I've also done it of the regions that touch us. Rockwood and Parkway are the only 2 that exceed us. They also have a higher percentage of students in special education than we have. One of them runs over 14% and the other over 16%. So we're running about 10.95. So our other comparable districts were under our achievement on state assessments.
Including the surrounding cohort, you said, too?
There were some pockets. Nixa had like a grade level above, but not over the board. When you look at our comparable districts of our size, we were above and everything. Jill did figure some effect size for us. If you'll think back on Hattie's book, we're always looking at the programs we implement and wanting to strive for everything to be that 0.40 or greater effect. And so we really looked at some of our key direct instruction programs that we've put into place, Do the Math, Read 180, and System 44. And we use the performance series data because we look at our performance series data just like we look at our MAP data. And so we had some large number of kids in those samples. It's really the first time we've done true effect size on them. And so when we looked at our Do the Math data, there were 168 students that were in that data set. Do the Math has a number core. It has addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and fractions with it. And so it has a wide number of students. We have students in district programs who maybe are in the number core, number sense, really trying to learn one-to-one correspondence. We might have a student struggling in fractions, and so they may take just that fractions component. So lots of differentiation with that. It's very hands-on, lots of manipulatives. We had a mix-up, so we actually have 2 data sets in there, and I wanted to average that, but Jill, being the statistician, told me I could not average that. So we had 109 students in one of the samples, and the effect size for them was 0.72, which would be considered very high, and then there were 59 students in the other sample, and that effect size was 0.68 for that group. So very nice effect size for the students. We had that program at all middle schools. We started it in the fall of 2011, and several of our elementary teachers also have access to it. We then looked at Read 180 and System 44 in two groups apiece. System 44 is that program that focuses more on those missing phonics skills. So when you bring a student in, you give them that assessment. If they have a Lexile below 400 is when we start looking at them for System 44, that they have too many missing phonics skills to be able to read fluently and to comprehend what they're reading. Read 180 then picks up more. They have those phonics skills, and so they're really going to focus on fluency and comprehension. We looked at both of those groups at 1.5 years in the program and 2.5 years in the program. The data set has everyone from elementary to age 21 in it, and it has all disability areas. And there are no gen ed students in there. We do have a few gen ed implementations. We did not drill down by disability. We have looked at some of that data by grade level, by disability in the past, and there is a difference based on their disability. But for what we did for you tonight, we just lumped them in and only separated out by year. So we had 280 students in the Read 180 sample, and those that had been in for 1.5 years had an effect size of 0.57, and those that had been in 2.5 years had an effect size of 0.68.
The effect size.
They're not.
No,
A
they're not
0.40
here,
would
right?
be, we would consider that in Hattie's book equal to like a year's learning. And so it's really that zone of, if it's less than a 0.40, you really want to look, is that having the effect you want on student achievement?
That's 0.68 over 2 years, though?
If they've been in the program that long.
2.5 years in the program, their last year's
Performance series
to
scores.
compare the 1.5 and the 2.5 to use a consistent measure.
That's not over the whole time. It's
Yeah.
just,
It's not over the
you're
whole
looking at the
It's 1 year's
parameters that they've
achievement
been in.
window.
Could for those of us who kind of new to this, have kind of a narrative about what that means
What
at
that
some point, and it could be written later or whatever.
Okay.
But
You presented it, I think it was last month, or when we got the reading recovery, or the reading, or Title I, there was an effect size explanation, right? That might be nice just to,
and I mean, what those specific numbers mean in this regard.
We can do that. It's a lot to absorb verbally. I'm used to having a PowerPoint. I like to send visual.
you need to speak up a little bit,
Okay.
Amy, yeah.
System 44, we had 200 students that we looked at in that sample. There were 155 that had been in there for 1.5 years, and then there were 45 that had 2.5 years. System 44 we do use with a lot of our district program students. We find that many of our students in a functional skills program are able to pick up some of those missing phonetic pieces, and then we can roll them into more of a sight word based program. They typically don't progress as well in Read 180. So again, it even has a larger gamut of cognitive abilities represented in the System 44 data. The students that had been in for 1.5 years had an effect size of 0.62, and then those that had been in 2.5 years were effect size of 0.44. And that group would have more of our district program students in it.
So the longer they were in, it starts to tail off.
At least in 1 year, that's where we started with
Okay.
Surface, just to have the 1 year.
My gut is that some of those students are district program students in functional skills that have cognitive
What
levels
does that
below.
mean? I think that's what,
They have cognitive levels below 70.
is that what you,
Well, that's what I'm saying. That you're talking about different programs. We've been concerned about what's working in title schools, rather than just I'm a visual learner. If there could be, here are the programs, here's what we're seeing, and here's what the interpretation
Be happy to do that.
is, would be very, very helpful, because this is certainly an interesting point that I have.
We'll be happy to do that for you. I'm a visual learner too, so I understand that. One of the things that we've done this year is special ed student or teachers have been more involved in the general ed curriculum than in past due to the collaboration with Ms. Pilley and with Dr. Harrell and Mrs. Moore supporting our work. And so with collaboration with professional learning, this was the first year that special education teachers were included in the district curriculum days in SPS Now. And they were also in all of the curriculum trainings as new curriculum was brought on. And so this is the first time, at least since I've been here, that all of our elementary teachers know what curriculum is there, what resources they should have, and had the knowledge to ask Ms. Pilley or Mrs. Moore about what they needed. That had been a missing piece. What we're seeing when we have cadres meeting with teachers is they're now getting comfortable enough to really differentiate for kids. And so they might have a student that was accessing System 44 or Read 180, but they see that piece of the general ed curriculum that fits a deficit that they have, and they're really kind of morphing that into a workshop model, and they're getting students out into the gen ed for a section. If they can do making meaning for 30 minutes, they're putting them in there. And some powerful stories of kids making connections from what they learned in the special ed room to what their peers are learning, and really having some deep conversations. And so that has been such a positive thing to be able to have our teachers included with the gen ed teachers in that training. We greatly appreciate that. Goal 3 is our incident rate. You know, we always monitor that. The state is right around 12%, and last year you can see we were 11.14. This year we're at 10.95.
Explain to people.
Based on our December 1 child count. When we send our data in on December 1, they then look at our students, what disabilities are they, what is their placement code, not only just how many there are. Again, a huge increase in autism. We're up about 33, 34 students in autism over December 1 of 2012, and other health impaired has grown significantly. The other disability categories are pretty static, but basically 10.95% of our student body has an IEP. That's what the incident rate means. And then parent survey data. This is our MSEP year. Special ed's going through MSEP, and so we got all 51 building special ed surveys. So we're going to work with Teresa Bledsoe on how we get those disseminated and returned. So we'll be looking at that survey data.
Okay, any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Just one question. The $9,000 plus expenditure per student, how much of that's IDEA funded?
In the total budget, it's always hard to figure. What we show in the office, including early childhood special ed and school age, is just a little bit higher than that. And that's that tricky part of separating those. But what we have with our funding source, early childhood special ed is 100% reimbursed. And so that budget is running right about $6 million. And so those are no local district dollars that support that. Of the school age side, with sequestration, we had $4.4 million that we received. We still had some carryover from previous ARA money, but that is about gone. And so we run about $17 million of local dollars, and then the 4.5, and then our carryover for school age. So it's not very well funded for a mandate.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But it seems higher. If it's 17 million out of 25.
Yeah.
Roughly funded at about 25%, kind of rough math. 17 million coming from the district side, so 17 of the 21, 22.
So that's fairly, I mean, this sounds awful, but it's fairly high compared to the national average, which is about 17% for IDEA funding. I mean,
yeah, I thought we were more up in the teens. I didn't think we were quite in the 20s yet.
I was going by the numbers you just put out there.
Yeah. That's why I was just curious how much of that, because I know the national average is about 17%. It's what they fund.
Not 40. I think we can
it's
say
not
that.
40 that we
got
promised.
4.48 million.
That's the best way to say it. It's not 40.
Yeah, 4.48 million is what we received this year for school age under Part B.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
So we're funding a significant amount.
Yes.
For the mandates that we're required to do.
Every district in Missouri is.
Yeah, we're not the only ones. Absolutely.
Getting to do that.
Go ahead, Dr. Frederick.
I have a quick question on your Goal 3 parent survey. You have in parentheses 2011, so is that when it was administered?
That is when we did the outside company, and we did the large survey that was statistically significant, and they surveyed thousands of parents. We have not done another formal one. That was 2 years ago. We will probably use our MSEP survey this year for our data.
Okay.
Because it was costly when we did that one.
Okay, so you have that for 13, 14, the 85%.
That was our goal that we set.
And what does that mean? What does that 85% mean?
That is whenever program leads don't have like hard goals or numbers like student achievement, then it's a process goal. So it's where they feel like they're using the data from that survey to affect their work. So it's in the OSR 1314 because that's the most current data that they have to drive action.
But we don't know what that survey said, or what your results were.
We're still using the results from that 2011. It was done right before the start of the 11-12 school year. And so we're using that data.
So that'll be available within the special ed department, and you'll be using that as you...
For our department action plans and driving our efforts, yes.
So your goal, your goal is you want 100% response.
It's not response, it's the amount that they're using. So, and there was a lot of conversation, do you put the actual pieces on there? But because it was from 2011, that's really kind of old data for what we have, but that's the most current that they have. So it's the process of using the data from the survey, not response.
Okay.
And so we'll use our MSEP survey data then to drive the next round of changes.
And the MSIP data, was that going to have general questions about parent satisfaction? What are they getting out of it? Because I'd like to see that on this. This process of using data from survey doesn't mean much to me. Maybe it means much to you guys. It doesn't mean much to me. But you know, a goal of, you know, we want X percentage parents satisfied or very satisfied with special education, because you know special education parents are, you know, they're pretty active in their child's education, and as a school board member, I'd like to know that I can tell them, hey, look, we've asked these questions, and either we're getting really good results and really satisfied parents, or we're not, and we need to make changes. But I'd certainly like to see that going forward.
We had really wanted to reissue the one we did in 2011 because we felt it was very comprehensive, and we even surveyed some processes that we put into place. But we spent about $4,000 on that, and so just not something that we felt comfortable doing this year. So we'll roll into that MSEP survey data. The challenge with that, they want parents. We send it home, and the parents either have to log on to an address to take it because it's the University of Missouri that does the analysis, or they have to mail the hard copy in. And so it's what Teresa Bledsoe and I are going to visit about, because it's going to be very difficult for our parents to participate in that manner.
Is there a way they could fill that out at school?
That's what we're going to work on and talk about some options to try to get a greater return rate.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next, I'll ask Mr. Anderson to come up. One clarification on the graduation rate is that since we have a new MSIP 5 way of tracking graduation, we have cohort data, you'll notice that it's a little bit different. Oh my goodness. Hold on. I think I have a mistake. The one on your computers is correct. This one is not correct. I apologize. The cohort data that you have is the MSIP 5 measurement. And so what they do is they take the cohort that entered in 2008 and did they graduate or not in 4 years. And so that's a little bit different for what you have, and it's the first time MSIP 5 grad rate has come forward. So just wanted to make that comment before LA starts.
Oh, you want me to start after
I
that?
do, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. No, it's a pleasure to be here. And to just kind of give you a little bit of information that our office has had a name change this year from cultural diversity to diversity and inclusion, and the homeless component as well. The homeless liaison is a mandated position that the school district must have as far as making sure that they decrease or eliminate barriers for students who are homeless. So to kind of start with that a little bit, I thought we were starting with the other sheet first.
Either one.
Either one is fine? Okay. All right. Well, so to give you some strengths that I was going to talk about here a little bit, right now we provide 25 to 30 diversity trainings to different sites as far as increasing their amount of cultural competence that they may have. And we're looking at increasing that. And right now sites have the training once every other year. Right now we're focusing on increasing that to where they have an annual face-to-face training, and then with some continued online education as well as we go through that. So, and the other deal is number 4. I was looking at our community partners and who we partner with the Drury Scholars Program and Missouri State with the Youth Empowerment Program. I'm sorry, a little bit nervous if you can't tell.
Don't be.
You've been making me, I've been waiting a little while. Water would be nice, but I don't know if it would help my nervousness, so it's okay. So it's all good. But number 4, our community partners, and and supporting and assisting them with a variety of different programs that are going on in the community. So, and then I'm going to jump down to opportunities for improvement. And looking at number 5, as I said before, with our trainings being once every other year, we need to get them to be annual and more so on a consistent level. And Andy, you look like you have a question.
I will later.
You will later? Okay. All right.
Ask questions.
Okay. And then number 6, I'm also looking at increasing our diverse teachers or our diverse hires within the district. So looking for additional funding to be able to go to college and recruiting fairs, to be able to make sure that our students are exposed to a variety of different folks as they're going through our system. So I'm done with that.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
Any questions about that one?
I'll start off.
Go ahead.
The hiring of number of new hire minority teachers, administrators, we're at, is that 3 last year? Is that what I'm looking at?
Say that again.
The teachers.
3.
12, 13, we had 11.
There were 3.
And 13, 14, we've had 3.
Right.
Obviously, we need to do better. It's no news to you. My question, and I asked this of Dr. Quinn when he was here, was whether the problem is in going out and presenting, or whether the problem is in making sure that our system is welcome to that. Because I've had calls in the past from seemingly very qualified candidates that have just kind of circled around in the, we're qualified to work at SPS, we're minority, we're not being hired. So first question is it a, we don't have the folks out there that we can contact, or is it a, we get them in here and they're not being selected by site leadership? Because how you address that hinges on the answer to that.
Yes, to both of those.
Both questions?
I think part of it is that Springfield has been known for having a welcoming deficit. So as far as, and that doesn't have anything to do with color or race. That has to do with, if you're not from this area, you may not necessarily fit in. Okay, so that was a part of the study that the chamber did back in 2009 that said that lack of welcome type of environment can affect Springfield's economic development. So with that, so it's not a problem that's necessarily with the district as far as hiring. I think it's also a community issue.
Well, and then the other kind of corollary to that is, I know we do these trainings, but these trainings are not the in-depth, days-long trainings that some of us have participated in.
Sure.
Is that correct?
True, yes.
So, I mean, and I think that is an absolute key to moving the needle, that until your site leadership, your other teachers are adequately trained in these areas, then I don't think you're going to move that needle. And I don't know whether that needs to be done on our dime or whether it needs to be done on Missouri State's dime when they send teachers to us, so that we don't have to train teachers that are already trained. But, going out and having the training kind of like you have the sexual harassment training, or the, no paper clips on Tuesday training, and everybody gets, and you sign your book, I've trained. I've done all my training because now I can be hired. That's good, but boy, I don't think it gets the results that we're going to need. So I'd certainly like for us to put much more of a focus on making sure every staff person, from the superintendent down to, the person that cleans the schools, has access to this training, and because I think it's incredibly important.
I totally agree with you. There is no doubt about that, which is why we're trying to focus on incorporating the training over a continuous time period, not just where you have the one interface, but it would be continual. So I understand, and the biggest thing to me is helping our folks understand why is diversity and inclusion important. Why? So once every other year, yeah, that's probably not appropriate. So,
LA.
Yes.
Perhaps it's because we're a little bit in a hermetically sealed environment. We hire most of our folks from Evangel, Drury, MSU. Most of their students, maybe not Drury, Evangel, but most of their students come from Southwest Missouri. So what efforts are we making to get outside of the regional colleges and universities to recruit? So we have some urban talent who are used to diversity in a regular day-to-day environment and come with different ideas and can model some of the things that the rest of us may need to know. I've just really been concerned that there's not a more of an outreach to outside the region.
I agree with you. That's working part of our strategic plan with Parker and HR. We're looking at doing that. One of the partnerships that we have is with MSU, and they've just made the connection with Pine Bluff and their education department there. So that's going to be another connection for us to possibly be.
I wasn't really thinking Arkansas, but
well,
that's a historically
Don't discriminate.
Well, I got to say, you got to be inclusive here now, Miss Annie. It's important.
Education, I will
Yeah,
admit,
but I understand what you mean as far as more from urban areas, from Kansas City, St. Louis. Yes, we plan on hitting all those areas, but understand and know that Springfield has it has that reputation. So you're battling that. Also having more diverse candidates. All school districts want to be more diverse. So as far as getting those folks, it's highly competitive. So if you're wanting an African-American male math teacher, well, who doesn't?
Yeah. So the thing is to encourage more minorities to go into education. I mean, it starts long before that.
Mm-hmm. And that's also working on a partnership with MSU, Drury, and Evangel as far as recognizing who those students are in their programs, as far as are they going to be good educators in this area.
One other thing, we have to be competitive salary-wise, which Parker can address, but it may take a little bit more money to get someone who comes farther distance and has a unique skill that we need. And I don't know if that happens at this point.
Well, and that's the biggest thing, is that it's important for us to make sure that they're not just folks who are from diverse backgrounds, but they need to be highly qualified. And that is the utmost point there, is that they're highly qualified to do the job. And then how you support them once they get here. Because sometimes the recruiting component can be every bit as easy as the retention. The retention component is the hard component. How do you get them to
I might also add that we do, as a part of our standard recruiting process, have several recruitment events outside of the Southwest Missouri area. It includes Kansas City, St. Louis, more metropolitan Arkansas, and Texas. So we're working to expand that, which is one of the opportunities for improvement that you see on LA's summary here. And, of course, the challenge we always see is where is Springfield, Missouri, and tell me more about that. And I think the Chamber's Talent Attraction Initiative goes a long way toward helping us with that.
Yeah, I was wondering, are we partnering with that talent attraction piece?
We are, and in fact, I've been working actually closely with the Chamber as they've developed that initiative. And so the large employers in the Springfield market have all been a part of that.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, you'll find that a lot of that diversity work that was done at the Chamber fell under Mr. Rosenberry's leadership when he was chairman. So
yes,
I think you have somebody stepping in here who's who's very knowledgeable.
You know, and one of the neat things is that I actually did a diversity workshop with Dr. Ritter's cabinet last week.
Yes,
I believe. So it has to come from the top all the way down. So it's very important. So I'm right there with you, Andy, as far as that goes. So anytime you guys are ready, you let me know for your diversity workshop. I'll be ready to give it to you.
Putting our money where our mouth is. I think some of us have been through the chambers, but it'd be good to do as a board level. Okay,
well,
thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Now you put your jacket back on.
So our tier 2 is for facilities. If you have any questions or comments for facilities, Dave Bishop is here. If not, we will conclude. Well done.
Yeah, I'm serious now.
All right.
I'm going to move over your way.
Okay, this item is actually more exciting than the bond compliance update. So it gets a little better. As you recall, in October 2013, the district issued $45 million of the $71.65 million bond issue that the voters approved in April of 2013, leaving $26.65 million that is now ready to be issued. In addition, at this time, it's advantageous for the district to refund $83.75 million of the 2006 bonds. The action item before you authorizes George K. Bond to proceed with the offering for sale the remaining $26.65 million of 2013 voter-approved bonds and the sale to refund $83.75 million of the 2006 bonds. And Greg Bricker from George K. Bond is here to discuss
Mr. Evers,
this.
we're having a hard time hearing the speakers. I don't know if the mic is not. Pull it up, George. There you go. Thank you.
Greg Bricker from George K. Baum is here to discuss this in more detail and answer any questions.
Yeah, we want to hear this good news. Mr. Bricker.
Good evening. You do have to stand close to this thing, don't you? Bring it out here. Well, great news all the way around. I remember when Mr. Lee quizzed me last October on whether it was smart to be holding back on selling the $26.6 million and only selling the $45 million. And first of all, we couldn't have afforded to sell all of it at that time. But secondarily, we had some reason to think that market may cool off, and it has. We have a very, very attractive market right now. The overall interest rates have come down since the first of the year, and the supply of municipal bonds since the first of the year have really slowed down a great deal, so that bears well for those that are bringing their issue to market. Right now, we are going to, with board approval, bring two different series of bonds to market. The remaining voted authorization of $26.6 million. Right now, I'm thinking the average interest rate on that should be somewhere in the 3 3/4% range. Looking to close this issue on April 1st. We have also been monitoring for 2+ years, probably, the refinancing opportunities of an issue done in 2006, the single largest issue in the district's history, a $96,500,000 issue, was sold at higher rates. There was an optional redemption feature embedded in that transaction that allows the district to pay off about 80% of that issue at no penalty on March 1st, 2016. So now we are within 2 years of that date to be able to pay that old issue off, and it is now generating substantial amounts of savings. Our plan would be, subject to the approval of the resolution this evening, I will be back at the study session, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, with final interest rates for board approval on both series of bonds. We can save maybe as much as $7 million on the refunding of the 2006 issue. And both transactions would close on April 1st. So I know you have a long agenda this evening. I will take any questions.
Are there any questions of Mr. Brooker? Go ahead.
Maybe it's not pertinent, but I don't want you to get away without me asking this question. There's some discussion in Jeff City concerning taking the bonds out to competitively bid. Up and down, I mean, it doesn't sound smart to me, but there's a whole lot of talk about forcing school districts to competitively bid bond issues.
This is
a impact, or how negative an impact would that be if that down the road as we're doing that?
I mean, I will admit I am biased on the topic, so I'm not sure that I am the most impartial one to ask. But this is a discussion that basically one party, namely the state auditor of Missouri, has been visiting and revisiting for nearly 30 years. There have never been any conclusive statistical evidence to definitively suggest that there is a advantageous way, one way or the other. And the competitive sale option takes away a great deal of flexibility that in this day and age, the marketplace we live in, having anything that reduces your flexibility will only translate into higher cost.
So you don't really see a future in that happening. Most likely, I mean, that's
Well,
my opinion.
I hate
know
to
that will
ever
happen.
project what the General Assembly will do.
I understand that, but I'm just saying
I would
heard wind of that, and I thought
there was going to be a hearing today, in fact, on one of the bills that got canceled. But there are other parties besides the investment banking community that have come out in opposition of this. The Community Banks Association in Missouri feels that their access to high-quality school bonds would be significantly reduced.
Well, you and I couldn't buy them.
The
Individuals who like to buy
correct. I think that
bonds or school
a
bonds
greater
can't buy them.
percentage of the bonds issued by Missouri schools will go to investors outside of the state of Missouri. If that's the goal of the General Assembly, then that would certainly be one way to accomplish it.
Are there any other questions of Mr. Berker?
Yes.
Dr. Prater?
$7 million savings over the life of the bonds.
Correct.
I think so. Steve, that comes out of our line 5200 interest. That's about $500,000 a year, or
Well, that's debt service funds, not operating funds.
okay. So what's our? Is that the $20 million a year we have in debt service about?
Yes.
Okay, so we're looking at $7 million reduction over the life of the remaining bonds. Thanks.
And that issue has the final life of 2026. That would be roughly 12 years.
Works. Thanks.
Anything else? Mr. Hosmer?
So that was a 20-year bond in 06, correct?
Yes.
So if I'm following this correctly, what we're wanting to do is pay back that $83,750 by selling these bonds at a lower rate, but we wouldn't pay them back until March
Refinance.
1st, 2016, correct?
Well, there would be a certain portion of it paid off each year, with the final year payment being in 2026. So basically, what we're doing is there is no extension of the debt. The final payment on the refunding bonds will occur on the very same day as the current final payment.
It's not like getting a second mortgage where you get.
No, we're not doing anything to extend any. We're just chopping off, in the first 4 years it's about $1.2 million, and then it goes down to $1 million, then $940,000, $848,000. The cash flows of the debt service fund could benefit from most of the savings occurring in the first 6 or 7 years of the 12-year period of time, but.
Is there a motion?
I move that the board adopt a resolution authorizing 26.6 general obligation bonds and 83,750 refinancing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Dr. Prater, seconded by Mrs. Bush, that the board approve the recommended action item as presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to updates to the board, Board of Education policies, Section D. This is the second reading.
Right. This is second reading. The board's had these policies for about 3 months, and this is the second month that it's been presented.
We're still waiting for.
Andy, you got to vote on that.
I did.
There.
All right.
Your problem there.
Are there questions of Mr. Chodas? Mrs. Bush?
Probably more comments than questions. Obviously, I've asked several questions. It seems to me what we're trying to do, we're going through policies one at a time and updating them, and continuous improvement is why we're doing this on all types of policies. One of the things I wish had happened is that we could have sat down and looked at choices. There were changes made and presented to us, but we really haven't had a dialogue about, is this the way we want it to be or not? Are there some changes we'd like to do? What we've gotten are some changes, and my concerns are with the changes that have been made to policies that have been recommended by MSBA. And it's those changes that I have concerns. Yes, I've gotten answers, but I haven't been happy with the answers. But I think I'm the only one speaking about my concerns. So I just continue to say, at this point, I wish we could have sat down and said, and just talked about them in each one of these sections that's been changed, and make sure that that's what we want to see happen. That's what I will say. I will be voting against it, though.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? That's probably the Amber Alert.
That's your Amber.
Mm. Oh, that's cool.
Go ahead.
I do have one question I think would be helpful is one of the I think it is board policy DB, in which we now have function identified, and that there may be necessary transfer budgets between functions. Is that correct?
That's correct,
Okay.
yes.
So if you could just provide just a little bit of the process that the district has in place for when that transfer occurs, who's involved in the transfer, the program director or the associate superintendent, or who okays the transfer, who requests the transfer, and who makes the decision where that goes?
Okay. Well, most transfers are within the same function. For example, the most common one is maybe a function has supply money, but they want to buy equipment, but they don't have any money in their equipment account, so they've got to transfer money from the supply account to the equipment account. And that's a function of the fact that our software will not allow us to expend more than the budget. So if there's no budget in a particular account, they cannot spend the money. So they have to transfer budget to that. In addition, at the start of the year, there's quite a few what I call allocation transfers, where we have a central pot in a central account, and then that money is distributed typically out to the school sites for them to expend during the year. Then whoever's managing that, like for example, curriculum, they have like the math adoption money that they distribute out to the sites. If they see that money's not being spent, then they'll do another transfer to transfer that money back in. There are some higher level transfers where a cabinet member will come to me and say, hey, this was unanticipated, I need some money. I'll then look at my contingency account, or if the cabinet member has a contingency account, then money will be transferred from there. All transfers are documented and then sent into the finance department. The budget analyst then reviews it, make sure it's an appropriate transfer. That is then sent to the budget manager, who also reviews it, and then I believe they go to John Everest for review as well.
So that's a consistent practice.
Yes.
So if money is transferred beyond from function to function to another function, the budget manager of both of those areas is informed and
right,
aware.
Right. You know, something that was done back in the day, Dr. Frederick will remember, you know, that there was the word sweep, yeah. And we flat out do not do that anymore. Haven't done it for quite a few years. You know, there is give and take. I cannot, or someone cannot go to a function and say, I'm just arbitrarily going to take some money. It's give and take. It's a matter of going to whoever is the lead of that function, saying, you know, I see that you have some unspent money here. Are you planning on spending it for the year? And if the answer is no, then I say, you know, there's a need over here. I've had a request. Can we transfer that money? And both sides agree, and the transfer is done.
And this was my concern about transfers money, not getting down to somebody needs more envelopes and somebody needs more stationery. It's at a certain level, and to discuss whether it's at the first digit, the second digit, the third digit, or the fourth digit. and the changes to this policy don't allow that decision to be made. So I will stop talking. I know
That's fine. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay, is there a motion?
I got to read it here, don't I? I move for the acceptance of Section D, fiscal management, for second reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Dr. Prater, seconded by Mr. Lee, that the board approves the updates to Board of Education Policy Section D, fiscal management, for second reading.
Thank you.
We had a conversation. I need to talk to you about policies with MSBA. We had a conversation with Rotary about it. I'll talk to you about it. I'll get to it.
All right, moving on to 9.03, startup at the E-Factory.
Dr. Hackenworth? Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening. You have in front of you an action item on the major instructional goals for startup at the E-Factory. This is the first course in the choice program startup or at the E-Factory, and this will be an online course for juniors starting next year. So per our process, we would like you all to review the MIGs and approve the MIGs so that we can move forward with creating the course. This is an exciting collaborative effort between curriculum, online learning or e-learning, and the choice program as well. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions?
You just said it, I think, and I wasn't paying attention. This is aimed at juniors and seniors?
This first course is aimed at juniors, and the senior level course will come the next year.
Be on site, right? Is that what the understanding is?
Right. The concept behind is that this online course will happen their junior year as kind of an introduction or prerequisite to then apply for the senior year program that will take place at E-Factory.
But the junior year would be online. They could take that right at their home school?
Correct.
Okay, so that kind of deals with the transportation issue. Go ahead.
The instruction done by SPS faculty?
Correct.
Will there be, I assume, experts from the E-Factory that will be brought in?
Right. So we'll collaborate and use the resources and the staff at the E-Factory, but the learning will be facilitated by a SPS employee.
One of your sentences is an advisory board will be established, made up of national, local, and entrepreneurs. Can you talk a little bit about where you are in that process of establishing that advisory board, or you may already be there, or?
We're just beginning. Honestly, there has been some discussion. That's a lot of the work that Mark Manus is helping facilitate when it comes to this project. But really, we're waiting to get the course description approved to really start the ball rolling with that. But that is one aspect that will make this a very unique experience for students.
Great. Good. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Lee, seconded by Mr. Renner, that the Board of Education approves the startup at the E-Factory major instructional goals and objectives as presented. Thank you. That's exciting. Go ahead, Mr. Wendt.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Ritter. It's my pleasure to bring some action items to you this evening. The first being the Glendale High School 2013 bond project. January 11th and 12th, we advertised for the project. Gaskin Hill Norcross was our architect for this project. We received the bids on February 4th and opened them on February 5th. We had 5 bids that were received. You'll see the attached bid tabulation. Bales is the responsible low bidder for this project with a base bid of $2,580,000, and there are 5 different alternates. Actually, the 6th and 7th alternate will be alternates that we will evaluate as we get into the project. As we remove some of the VAT from the floor, we'll see the condition of the concrete to determine if we will take any of these, and that would be done through a change order at unit price. The funds are available within our 2013 bond project. We had anticipated roughly $2.8 million for this phase of it. As you'll recall, we did do a structural steel package earlier. So we are pleased with these numbers, and we ask that the board authorize the superintendent or his designee to approve Bales Construction Company for a base bid plus alternates 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for a total of $2,677,425 for the Glendale High School project.
Questions? Is there a motion?
As a Glendale graduate, I so move.
Is there
Second.
a second? As a Glendale dad. It's been moved by Dr. Prater, seconded by Mr. Lee, that the board approve the recommendation as presented.
I just ask a quick question. What was the estimated cost before the bids came in?
Well, we were thinking it was going to be right about 2.8.
Go ahead and go into Kickapoo while we're waiting for it.
Okay, the next item is the Kickapoo High School, the 2013 bond project. This was advertised January 18th and 19th. This was for Phase 1A and 1B. Phase 1A is the mechanical phase of that project to complete all the mechanical work that we had started previously, and 1B is to enclose the courtyard and do the renovations of the kitchen cafeteria area. Buxton Cubic Dodd Creative is the architect on this project. We received bids on February 11th and opened them on February 12th. There were 3 bids that we received. You'll see that we received 2 combination bids and 1 individual bid. Since we only had an individual bid on 1A and we did not receive an individual on 1B, we'll be looking at the combination bid. So that takes us to the bids between Carson Mitchell and DeWitt. And DeWitt is the apparent low bidder for the project with a base bid of $8,043,000. And there are several alternates that we would be looking to do with this project as well. These funds are also available in the 2013 bond funds, and we would ask the board authorize the superintendent or his designee to approve DeWitt's base bid plus alternates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 for a total of $8,484,950 for the Kickapoo High School Phase 1A and 1B.
Any questions?
Yeah. Could I ask anticipated completion date of the Kickapoo as well as the Glendale? When? I mean,
well, the Glendale project, the final completion we'd be looking at in December of 13. For Kickapoo Phase 1A, that would be part of that would be completed this summer. The remainder of that would be the following summer, and the 1B would also be probably by December. Now we are working through plans on how to stage through. Obviously, during the summer, we need to get the courtyards enclosed and get things ready for the start of school as far as meal preparation and those things. But that work will continue.
Any other questions, Mr. Lee?
Estimated cost compared to bid?
We are looking at about $8.9 million for this, for those 2 pieces.
Scott, walk me through this scenario where you ask people for either an individual and or a combined bid for phases 1A and 1B. Is that correct?
Yes. In this particular project, we had originally anticipated bidding the mechanical separate from the other part. It was a strategy that we had developed with the design firms early on. We'd anticipated that because of the amount of mechanical work and it just being mechanical work, that there would be a good likelihood that we might get a mechanical contractor to bid it as a prime so that we wouldn't have all the general conditions you might have.
Then in terms of the legalities of accepting the low bid, if there was been another bid for the individual for Phase 1A, and then the 2 bids for the combination, was it within the bid documents to say we can choose one, either
yes,
low combined or a low separate?
Individuals, yes.
Okay.
We could do it either way.
Okay. Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I would like to make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Dr. Frederick, seconded by Mr. Renner, that the board approves the recommendation item for Kickapoo.
Kickapoo people.
That's nice. Mr. Went, you might as well just keep going.
Okay, and this next item is for the new softball field construction for both Glendale and Kickapoo High School. And it consists of 2 natural turf grass softball fields with masonry dugouts and field lighting. We received bids from 8 contractors. The bid tab is attached. Land 3 Studios was the architect for this project. This would be funded from Major Repair. Branco Enterprise is the low responsible bidder on it. If you look at just base bid alone, they would not be low, but with the alternates, that places Branco Enterprise as the low bidder. So the total that we would be asking the board to approve this evening is $922,000. We have $1 million, which was earmarked for this project. So with this and with A&E fees, that will put us, we anticipate probably being about $50,000 over total when it's said and done. And the recommendation this evening is that the board issues a contract to Branco in the amount of $922,000 for the base bid combined $800,000 and alternates 1, 2, and 3.
And this is not bond money, right? This is
Right, this is Major Repair.
And Branco, where are they from?
Neosho.
Let's go with him.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Lean, seconded by Mrs. Bush, that the board issue a contract to Branco for the Glendale and Kickapoo projects.
Thank you.
Johnny Branham.
Moving on to the treasurer's report.
Thank you. We're talking about the January Treasurer's Report. I've already given the board an update on the revenue projection, so the only thing I'll say about revenue is that we have received the property tax payment for the month of February, and that is up $643,000 over the same month last year, though that was factored into my projections. Expenditures, I'm pleased to see that year-to-date they are tracking lower than they were at this time last year, 45.37% to 47.1%. I would like to point out that down on line 4,000, facilities acquisition and construction, that does have the money for the transportation facility in there. And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
And would you make a comment on the addition to, I think we had asked from the board perspective, the adding
description
justification or description to
right.
The transfers?
A narrative.
Yes.
Narrative, that's the word
Yes.
I want, yep.
Yes.
They noticed that, but that is there. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So move.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Mr. Renner, seconded by Dr. Prater, that the board approves the treasurer's report as presented.
Thank you.
Right, moving on to routine action items. Is there a motion to approve those? See all those special meetings and executive session. Thank you, Mrs. Luton, for all those extra minutes.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by and seconded, was it Prater and Renner? Okay, that the board approves each of the routine action items as submitted. We'll vote. Mrs. Luton, are there any public comments for non-agenda items? Okay, moving on, excuse me, to comments from the board, legislative report. I know Mr. Lee was in Jeff City today.
Yes, I was.
Would you like to give us an update?
And I escaped, that's right. They haven't caught me yet. I'm not going to go into a lot of details on a whole bunch of bills, but there's not a whole lot of issues being talked about, but there's a whole lot of bills on each issue that's been happening. And so, I mean, the whole tax issue of income tax, and as you all know, the governor and Senator Krause kind of came to at least they're in the same ballpark. I don't know that there's any agreement on what kind of budget or tax reform that he would approve with respect to fully funding the formula, and basically said he'll be to anything that doesn't fully fund the formula before you start tax reductions. And so he was pretty emphatic today about sticking with that, and there's bills everywhere on tax issues. So I'm not even going to try to address all of them, but hopefully he's going to stay firm. The Senate, I think, probably will be pretty good with that. The House, who knows? They're all over the board. One of the other ones that's really interesting, there's a lot of bills out, school calendar. Changing
Again?
the school, yes. And
Every
it's
year.
not just one. We can't start before September 1st, and you have to be done by end of May.
What does that do for what we want to do for a balanced calendar?
And they're also talking about increasing the hours from 10:40 or 10:44 to 10:80. And so, honestly, I don't know if that will go anywhere, but we're fighting that pretty hard. That's local control. That's the local board's decision to make that, and the state doesn't have any business to be involved with that.
What's the driver of that?
Tourism, farming. That's
Cut it
driving.
out. Cut it out. Tell me
Probably
that.
the biggest issue that bills are flying is the Kansas City transfer issue with respect to unaccredited school districts. And I think one of the things that this board needs to always keep in mind is while we may not be near Kansas City, this will affect us in some way. And talked to Kansas City quite a bit today, and their board and superintendent, and there's just a whole lot of effort out there with respect to the whole transfer issues. As most of you know, there's like 9 different transfer plans out there being looked at. We think MSBA's probably got the one they're going to do, which talks about contracting with DESE or somebody like that to do improvements and then holding their feet to the fire. Don't know. State board talked about it today. They had a meeting. I expect to hear something or see something in March, probably the next time they meet is when I think the board will come up with a plan, and it probably will be a compromise of several of the plans. Probably not C-Trust. That's a separate thing. I don't think they can combine a lot of that, but C-Trust could be a subcontract with that. Don't know. But the other one, Common Core, there's several bills out there on Common Core. They had a big anti-Common
Make sure it
Core.
gets implemented? Is that?
No, yeah, not quite. Big anti-Common Core rally today at the Capitol, and so all I know is the House Education Committee chairman says it's not going anywhere. He's not going to let it come out of his committee. Whether that happens or not.
Way to go.
Anything else?
Just one last item, which does impact us, is the budget. And, you know, the governor's budget had $278 million for fully funding the formula. It's probably not likely we're going to get that, but what I'm hearing is it could very well be in the 170 to 190 million. They're not going to let him get 278 million. There's just no way, just for principle, even if they have it. So they're arguing about how much money we're going to have, just like you talked about revenue. No one can come to an agreement on revenues because it's 18 months out. So we probably won't get to 278 million as in education, but we're going to get a sizable chunk more than we've had before. It's really kind of put legislatures in a situation that you either fund it or you're coming out against public education. Great strategy. So I think we'll come out with some money. May not be what we thought we were going to get, but it's better than the $5 million we got 2 years ago and 66 last year's. Going in the right direction. And just a positive thing with that, and I won't take time, is instead of talking about no money and the governor's proposal that we'd like to fully fund it in 2 years, now I'm here in the House talking about, well, you know, we can't do it in 2 years. Maybe we can do it in 3 or 4.
So
So they're talking about fully funding it, but they just want to extend the time, which has never been even a discussion point before. So to me, that's a positive. It's also election year. But,
Where everybody's the
everybody's
education
being,
candidate.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Run with education and win on that one. So,
What percentage of the House will turn over? Good turnover.
Major.
huge,
Yeah.
huge turnover in,
78% or something.
huge number will, good.
Well, thank you for being there on our behalf. I know that it's always on a school board day, and, also came right in the middle of
If I may,
superintendent search meetings, so.
if I may, there's one thing that we all need to know, is the state board is changing in a huge way. And the state board, with recent appointments, we're going to see that drive the agenda far more than we have before. In fact, I think the state,
You think positively?
it's a very positive
Very
thing,
positive thing.
extremely positive. In fact, the state board's telling the commissioner what to do. And so, and also telling, and so really what's interesting is the legislature's starting to listen to the state board.
Good.
And so I think the state board is a group that we need to stay in contact with, and a number of those have been former school board members, and also teachers and superintendents. And so I think we have a lot of intelligence and common sense now on the state board. Not saying that we didn't before, but this is a more aggressive group, and I think we need to personally get to know this group. I really do, and I think it's going to be very powerful. So, and
Anything else under legislative?
Well, one thing that I would disagree, Jerry, the idea that we're going to have a strategy that says if you take money from education, you're against education. That's really not a strategy. That's what's called the truth. So we need to make sure that we understand
Well,
the point.
you can have
We're
strategy
not,
and truth the
We're not
same.
being strategic when we say,
You're right.
when you take money from public education, you're being against education. You are
Very good point.
voting against education when you take money from public education. That needs to,
Yeah.
we need to remember that it's not a political thing. This is just truth and untruths.
Good point. Anything else under legislative? How about future? Anything under future? Anything under other? You did receive the financial and operations report under separate cover. If you have an opportunity to provide some feedback on how tonight's meeting went, thank you, everybody. I think we got through a lot of material in not a short amount of time, but we will need a vote to go into executive session.